Recently, I've been thinking a lot about aspect ratios, and I know that sounds kind of weird and a little boring, I guess, but for the past couple of weeks when I watch something, whether that's a movie, TV show, or what have you, I found myself questioning why the filmmakers chose the aspect ratios they did. Why did they decide to tell the story in that size frame, and what does that do to further the film? Does it even matter? Well, yeah, it does. You see, before the filmmakers even begin to shoot their film, they have to decide what aspect ratio they want to shoot their film in. And it usually goes something like this. For more story-centric comedies and dramas, it's common to shoot in the aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1, or 185 for short. In dramas, this allows the character to fill up more space on screen in close-ups, and therefore the scene feels more intimate and focused on the character. For comedies, it allows us to see the whole frame and for the audience to not get lost in the comedic wide shots. 1.85 isn't only used in these genres, it can be used in, well, pretty much anything. But if you go into a comedy or drama, you'll be most likely seeing this aspect ratio. The other most common aspect ratio that you'll see is 2.35 to 1. This is typically used for epics, stories told on a large scale that put focus on the landscape that the story is told in. Take Lord of the Rings for example. 2.35 really puts emphasis on Middle-earth and makes the characters feel small in comparison to the world around them. I mean, it just wouldn't look right if those sweeping shots looked like this, would it? Now, most films usually stick with one of these aspect ratios, and if chosen correctly, the ratio will give the film an overall feel that is beneficial to the viewing experience. However, there are some films and pieces of media that go above and beyond and use aspect ratios as a filmmaking tool in very creative ways that help to enhance the story and experience even more. And that's why I'm here today, to talk about something that I think is very overlooked and to highlight some great examples of aspect ratios used creatively. So, here goes. The other aspect ratio that you might see here and there that I haven't touched on yet is the 4:3 aspect ratio. While this used to be a very popular ratio to use, well, it was kind of the only ratio you could use back in the day. In recent years it's been used in more indie and art housey movies and has got quite a bad rap over the years due to the criticism that some art films just use it to be different while not really having an artistic purpose. But when used right, 4:3 can be very useful. Like, look at when Jonah Hill used it for mid-90s to make the film feel more like a 90s skate video and give it that nostalgic feel. Or when Wes Anderson used it for the Grand Budapest Hotel to show a passage of time. More on that in another video that I made, check it out if you want. Oh, you just don't really have to, it's not that good. Or we can look at even more recently, Zack Snyder when he released his rendition of the Justice League. Here he used the 4:3 aspect ratio because he said he wanted to preserve the full frame of the 35mm film cell. Meaning that if you went the usual route of these big budget superhero films, you would be losing all that detail at the top and bottom. Some people like this decision, some people don't. Honestly, I don't care. Now that we know the common types, what happens when filmmakers decide to push the limits of aspect ratios and really start getting crazy? Well, I've gathered a few examples to show you, so let's go! I recently had the pleasure to visit an indie cinema in a city near me, and when I was there, I watched a little film called Limbo. Before I explain more about this film, I just want to say if y'all are interested in film, especially more indie art house films, then look up if there's any indie cinemas near you and just go watch a film. Support smaller cinemas because they really need it, especially nowadays. Anyway, Limbo follows the story of Omar, a young Syrian musician who seeks asylum while on a remote Scottish island. I went into this knowing nothing, and I gotta say, Limbo ended up being an amazing comedic yet dark film that I highly recommend anyone watch. But while I was watching it, the thing that I thought stood out the most was, yep, you guessed it, the aspect ratio. Sitting at a 4:3 aspect ratio for most of the film really helps sell the trapped feeling that our characters are going through. The black bars on the side of the screen really make you feel isolated in this remote location with them. Not only this, but the aspect ratio is used as a great framing device. I love every shot in this film. They were so simplistic yet beautifully symmetrical. Again, watch this film, it's great. Throughout Limbo, we learn that our main character Omar plays an instrument called the oud. I think that's how you say it, I don't know, but here's a picture of it. However, we never see him play this instrument. He just carries it around everywhere he goes as though holding on to the last bit of home he has. A recurring line in the film that's said to Omar is that a musician that doesn't play is dead. However, it's in the final scene when our main character finally plays the instrument, and there's an overwhelming sense of freedom as the black bars part, and the film becomes a full 16:9 ratio. Representing Omar's breakaway from reality as he plays. He is no longer trapped in this place, and it's through music that he and us as the audience watching finally feel free. Again, please watch this film, it's great. Anyway, moving on. A movie that uses aspect ratios in a similar way to Limbo is the film Mummy. I know, kind of an unfortunate title, but if you've seen the film, then you'll know that it's a perfect fit. At first glance, the film looks like some Instagram video or something, because I mean, just look at that aspect ratio. It's a freaking square, sitting at a clean 1:1 aspect ratio. This film, like Limbo, really makes you feel trapped. This is to reflect the story of a mother and a relationship with her son, who has ADHD and violent tendencies. I could see why some people may be put off a bit by the aspect ratio, but if you give this movie a go, you'll get used to it quite quickly. Now, having this film be a square isn't the only thing Xavier Dolan, or I think that's how you say his name, did with this aspect ratio, as in the film there is a moment where everything seems to be good. Things begin to look up for the mother and her son, and we get an upbeat montage where the son literally grabs the black bars and pushes them to the side of the screen. I can't tell you how freeing this feels when you watch the film. Hell, the son character even shouts out, "I'm free," when this happens. However, this freedom doesn't last long, as in the following scene the mother is served a letter indicating that they are being sued for the boy's actions at his previous school. And as the mother reads the letter, we watch the black bars begin to slowly creep into view again and suffocate both us as the audience and the mother back into the situation. This opening of the black bars happens again later on in the film when we see glimpses into the family's future. However, we come to discover that it was just a fantasy of what could be in their life, as a distraction from the harsh reality of this relationship, and once again, the black bars return. Anyway, with all that deep stuff out the way, let's talk about a cartoon samurai who fights robots. Yep, Samurai Jack, a show that I really love and I associate with my childhood quite a bit because it was the very last show on before I had to go to bed when I was like 7. Being that I love it so much, I was really happy to find out when Adult Swim decided to make season 5 in 2017 that wrapped up the story and made it more mature. But you already know why we're talking about this, it's because of them freaking
aspect ratios, boy.
Samurai Jack shows us that aspect ratios can not only be used as a creative tool in film, but animation as well. This show uses its ratios like nothing I've ever seen before, and this is largely because of the series creator Genndy Tartakovsky, the crazy I would need to redo this. Largely because of the series creator Genndy Tartakovsky's creative vision. And speaking of vision, this show uses aspect ratios to guide the viewer's eye to what's important on screen. Now, I recommend you watch this show in its entirety, or at least season 5, and I mean, you might as well just buy the whole thing on Blu-ray, and while you're at it, just buy 2 and maybe send me one, I guess, I don't know. But seriously, watch the whole show if you want to, but don't worry because the next clip is from the very first scene of season 5, episode 1, so you are safe when it comes to spoilers. Anyway, take a look at this. The viewer's eye is guided to what matters on screen and what the animators want you to look at. This creates a great and unique sense of action that I've only got from this show. When trying to figure out what aspect ratio Samurai Jack has, I really don't know, because even when the show isn't using crazy stylistic aspect ratios, it goes from 16:9 in the most story-centric dialogue scenes to a letterbox 2.35 in the action scenes, which adds emphasis on the action and tension to what is happening on screen, just by changing the size of the frame. Changing to this letterbox ratio in action scenes is also the show paying homage to old samurai movies akin to those of Kurosawa and all those, all those ones. The way Samurai Jack plays with something so simple as black bars on a screen or the size of the frame and gets such a great result really goes to show how aspect ratios could be used more creatively in other pieces of media. Filmmakers could really start using them more as a tool to tell their stories, if only they would start thinking more outside the box, or in this case, inside the box. And as far as Samurai Jack goes, this show truly has no limits. Well, that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's one thing you should take away from this video, then it would probably be, I don't know, aspect ratios are cool, I guess. Alright, bye. Also subscribe if you want, you don't have to. Yeah, so that's it. Bye bye.